The ship floated in cold, dark space. Its lights were off, its hull was cracked and burned, its engines were dead and silent. The wreck had been there for many years, maybe more, maybe less, no one really knew. A group of aliens in a scout ship came close. They were part of the Empire, a powerful force that had crushed many worlds. They saw the human ship and laughed humans were gone. Humans had lost the war long ago. They were weak. They were nothing. But one alien was quiet. Her name was Ral. She was young, curious, and different from the rest. She looked at the human ship and felt something strange, something she could not explain. The Empire leader told them to take what they could and leave no need to waste time on dead things. Ral asked to go inside just for a moment, just to see the last traces of the enemy. Permission was given, and she entered the human ship alone. The air was thin, and cold wires hung from the ceiling walls were burned and broken. She walked slowly, her steps careful. Her eyes wide, she saw signs of a fight. There were holes in the walls and burn marks from weapons, but no bodies. She reached the cockpit and froze. The seat was empty. No pilot, but the seat was warm. Not hot, but warm enough. Like someone had just left. Not long ago, Raoul touched the seat, her hand shaking. She looked around and found scratch marks on the wall near the console. She leaned closer and read the simple words written in the human language, still alive, still here, not done yet. Her heart beat faster. She backed away and looked around again. There was no body, no bones, no helmet, only silence. She found a trail of small 1 drops of dried blood, a few torn pieces of cloth. It led to a hatch at the back of the ship. She opened it and found a small escape pod. Missing it had been used. Raoul turned on her recorder, but then stopped. And she told the others they would burn the wreck and hunt for the human. But something told her not to say anything, not yet. She closed the hatch and walked back through the ship, her mind racing. When she left the ship, the others were laughing again, calling the humans cowards, calling them dust. Raoul forced a smile and said nothing. She looked back at the ship and whispered in her own mind, someone got out, someone is still alive. And if he's out there, he will not forget. The scout ship left, and the wreck was marked for later pickup. But Raoul knew they would not return. Too many other things to do, too many other worlds to crush that night. Raoul could not sleep. She watched the stars and wondered where the pilot had gone. Had he died on a rock, alone and cold, or was he hiding, waiting, watching? In her dreams, she saw a human walking through the dark, his face covered in shadow, his eyes full of fire. She woke up afraid not of him, but of what he might do elsewhere, far from any planet. A small station blinked in the dark, a single light shining through the black. Inside the station was a man, his face rough, his hands scarred, his eyes sharp, and tired. He moved slowly, checking screens, fixing wires, writing notes. He looked at an old photo taped to the wall. It showed a group of humans in flight suits smiling. He was the only one left, the last pilot. They thought he was dead. Let them think that he had escaped his broken ship using the pod and landed on a small moon. He had fixed a broken drone and found parts and made a signal. But the signal was not a call for help. It was bait. He wanted them to come. He wanted to know who still hunted. Humans who still followed the Empire, and now he knew he had seen the ship that came. He had seen the young alien who entered his wreck and left it alone. He did not know her name, but he knew her face. She did not report him. That was good. But the others would return someday, and he would be ready. He was not done. Not yet. The galaxy thought humans were gone, but one still breathed. One still flew. The last pilot, and he would make sure they never forgot what a human could do. He sat back in his chair and looked at the stars. One hand rested on an old helmet, the other on a weapon. He waited, and somewhere in the dark, someone was watching back. Stars were quiet but not empty. The silence hid a secret, a ghost that moved without sound, without name, without fear. On the edge of the Empire space, a patrol ship floated slowly, its crew bored and tired, watching screens that showed nothing. Then a sound came through the speakers, low, broken, and strange. It was not a voice, not a language, just a pattern. Old human, one alien officer sat up, straight, his skin cold with fear. He had studied old wars. He knew that sound. It was a human code, but humans were gone. Everyone knew that. Still the sound kept coming, a short signal, then silence, then again. The officer called the captain, who laughed at first, but then frowned when he heard the sound. No one had used that code in years. The captain ordered a trace. They followed the signal deeper into empty space. The ship moved slowly, as if afraid. The closer they got, the more things went wrong. Lights blinked without reason. Screens froze. Engines slowed, even though there was no damage. Then the signal stopped silence, and then a whisper, a voice, one word still flying. The crew froze, no one spoke. The captain gave the order to leave, but it was too late. The lights shut down, the engines died. The air turned thin. The ship drifted, and on one of the screens, a message appeared. You should not have come. That was the last anyone heard from that. Patrol ship. The Empire sent another crew, days later to find them, but found only an empty hull floating cold and dead. No signs of life, no signs of battle, just silence. The Empire told the public it was a system error, a failure in the ship's core. But some knew better. One of them was Ral. She sat in her room listening to the secret message replayed by a hidden device. Still flying, the voice was human. She remembered the wreck she had entered, the warm seat, the missing escape pod it all made. Since now the pilot was alive, he was hunting, not with bombs, not with armies, but with fear and silence. A ghost in the stars. She looked over maps and reports. Ship movements lost cargo signals that vanished in the dark. She traced a path through the silence, and she found a pattern. Someone was moving through forgotten paths. Using dead signals and broken machines, she smiled, not with joy, but with wonder. He was not just hiding, he was working somewhere. Far from her, a small station lit up. Again, just for a second, inside the last human pilot watched the Empire dance. He had set the signal as bait again, and they took it. Every time they came closer, he learned more. He knew their systems, he knew their weak points, and he had no orders. No rules, no fear. The pilot had changed since the war. He had seen friends die. He had seen his planet fall. Now he was only one thing. The last, but he was not done. He worked with old machines, rebuilt lost tech, made traps from junk. His body was tired. But his mind was sharp, and every time the Empire sent a ship, he left a mark, a broken wing, a lost drone, a warning. The ghost was real, and the fear was growing. In one dark corner of the galaxy, a merchant ship sent out a call for help. It had been attacked but not destroyed. The crew said they saw a flash, a fast strike, then nothing, the engines were gone, but no one was killed. Just a message left on the wall, remember Earth. The Empire told them to stay silent, but the story spread in bars and ports and quiet places. The name returned human, not many believed it, but some did, and fear began to spread. Ral heard the story and felt her heart beat faster. He was reaching out, not to kill, to remind. She knew what would come next. The Empire would send hunters the best they had, but she also knew they would not find a man. They would find a shadow, and shadows cannot be caught. In the silence of space, the pilot sat in the dark, his helmet beside him, his eyes watching stars. He whispered to the stars, not in anger, not in hate, just in truth. You forgot us. Now, remember. He stood up and checked his gear. Somewhere out there, another signal was waiting, another ship to scare, another Empire lie to break. He walked to his old fighter patch with scrap powered by memory and will. He looked at a photo on the wall one more time, a promise made long ago to never stop, to never forget, to keep flying. He sat in the cockpit and powered the engines. They roared like old thunder. And in the dark, the ghost moved again. The Empire had enough of silence, enough of rumors, enough of fear. They wanted answers. They wanted results. They wanted the ghost erased. They sent hunters, not soldiers, not scouts, but killers, the best of the best, trained to hunt across stars, trained to end what others feared to touch. One of them was called Varn, cold, fast, brutal. No voice, only action is your ship, black as space itself. His eyes sharp, and empty Varn was sent to a moon full of wrecks where the last signal had come from the same place, where the merchant crew found that message. Remember, Earth Varn landed without sound. Without warning, he moved like a shadow through broken ships and shattered metal. He found no sign of life, no body, no heat, just silence until he found it, a trail. A boot print in dust, not old, not worn, but fresh. The print led him through tunnels made from ship parts twisted together like a trap. Varn smiled not with joy, but with hunger. He was close. He found a room filled with human parts, wires, screens, paper. Photos, names written on the walls, and one word over and over. Alive, Varn reached for his cum. Then everything went black. His ship lost contact. His signal vanished. A day later, the Empire found what was left, nothing but ash, and one word carved into stone, still flying. The Emperor was silent as he looked at the message. He did not shout. He did not scream. He only turned away and whispered. It cannot be. Rao watched the news feed from her corner on the station. They called it an accident again. They always did, but she knew she had tracked Varn's path. She saw the moon he landed on. She saw the signal before it vanished. The human had been waiting, and the hunter had walked right into it. Raul knew the pilot was not just hiding anymore. He was planning something big. Some said the ghost was just that ghost, a fear made real by guilt and shame. But Raul had walked into the wreck. She had felt the warm seat. She had read the words scratched in steel, still alive somewhere. There, the last pilot was watching, listening, learning. In deep space, a station powered by old human tech blinked awake again inside. The pilot checked his maps, marked his next point. He had heard the hunter land. He had seen him walk. He had watched him fall. No joy, no anger, no regret, just focus. The pilot opened a box and pulled out an old patch with a bird on fire stitched in red and black. The mark of his squat all gone. He ran his fingers over it and closed his eyes. Not forgotten, he stood up and moved through the narrow hall filled with pieces of ships he had collected over years. Each piece told a story, each story a loss, each loss a reason. He opened a drawer and pulled out a small device, a tracker. He placed it on his arm and watched. The light blinked. The Empire had more hunters. He knew they would send them, and he was ready. In the Empire command room, the Emperor met with his top generals. They spoke of new traps, stronger fleets, more force. One general asked, "What if the human was not alone?" The Emperor slammed his hand down and said, "No, there's only one who hides and runs. He will burn like the rest." But deep inside, even he felt the chill, because this one did not run. He fought without armies, without support, without fear. He fought with memory, and memory was fire. Raoul sat in her room and watched the stars. She listened to dead channels, where the ghost sometimes whispered. She had not told anyone, not yet. They would not understand. She opened her screen and typed, "A message to the one who flies. I saw what you left behind. I did not tell them. I do not want what they want. I want to know why you fight." She sent it on an old frequency, one used in the early days of the war. Maybe he would hear, maybe not, but somewhere. In the dark, a light blinked. The pilot read the message. His eyes narrowed, his breath slow. He did not smile, but he did not turn away. He saved the message and shut the screen. He would not answer, not yet, but he would not forget the name Raoul. He returned to his seat, checked his weapons, checked his fuel. Another hunter would come, another shadow would walk into the storm, and the storm would wait. The last pilot, the ghost of Earth, still flying, still fighting, and the Empire had just begun to learn what one human could do when there was nothing left to lose. Asterisk. The stars turned slow and silent as the last human pilot sat inside his hidden station, watching his screens, reading her message again and again. He did not know her name, not truly he. Only saw the letters signed at the bottom, simple and quiet, Raoul. She had walked through his wreck, seen his seat, touched the console, read the words, and left. Without calling the Empire, now she sent him a message, a short one, honest, without fear. "I want to know why you fight." He did not know if it was a trap, but something about her words felt real. Not like the Empire's lies or the hunters' threats. He leaned back in his chair, eyes on the stars, wondering if anyone had ever truly asked him that question before, why he thought of Earth, not the burning skies or the ruins, but the quiet things, the smell of wet grass, the sound of rain, the weight of a real sky. He thought of the ones he lost. He stood slowly, walked to the side wall, and pulled down an old box. Inside were patches, dog tags, a folded flag stained, and torn memories. He ran his hand across the metal, one name at a time, one call sign, one friend, one loss. Then he turned back and typed a reply, only 5 words, "You already know the reason." He did not send it, not yet. He stared at the screen, thinking of what might happen if he answered, if she told the Empire. If they used his words against him, but something inside him said it was time to speak. He pressed send and waited. Far away on a space station near the edge of Empire space, Raoul sat alone, her hand shaking as her device blinked. She opened the message and read it again and again. You already know the reason. She did know. She had read the stories buried under Empire records, seen the videos of fire falling over human cities, heard the last broadcasts full of screams and silence. She had studied the war, not the way they told it in training, but the real way, the way they hid the humans did not start the war. The humans answered it, and when they fell, they did not beg. They fought to the last to him. Raoul stood and paced her room, the stars outside the window, unmoving and quiet. She typed back, slowly, carefully. "Then why stay in the shadows? Why not let the galaxy see you?" She sent the message before she could change her mind this time. He replied fast. "The shadows are where they forget." And I want them to remember. Raul closed her eyes, the words echoing like thunder inside her chest. She knew what he meant. The Empire moved fast, but it forgot faster. It erased history, buried names, called itself just and wise. But now the stars whispered of the ghost of Earth, a ship that never showed on radar, a message that haunted systems, a shadow that struck and vanished, and all of it because of one man. She opened the channel again and sent one more message. If I come to you, will you speak? He waited longer this time. He did not trust easily, not anymore, but the galaxy was changing, and even ghosts needed to speak. Sometimes he answered, come alone, come quiet. She read the message and felt fear rise in her throat, but she nodded to no one. She would go. She left her post at night, forged a mission report, took a small scout ship, and vanished into the dark. Her path was clear, her signal hidden, her hands cold on the controls. She followed the trail of broken signals, old codes, and silent stars. She saw places he had been, empty stations with walls marked in chalk, forgotten outposts with screens that blinked one word. Remember. Finally, she reached a dark rock floating in space, surrounded by junk and old debris. At first, it looked dead. Then a light blinked once then. Twice she followed it and landed slow, her heart beating like thunder in her chest. The station opened for her. Inside it was quiet, full of old machines, wires, maps, papers, and one man. He stood at the far side waiting, not holding a weapon, not raising a hand. He wore an old flight suit, patched and faded, his face tired, his eyes sharp like fire behind storm clouds. She stepped in and looked at him without speaking. He nodded once and spoke first. You came. She nodded back. He waited. They stood in silence for a long time, two souls from different worlds, both shaped by the same war. Then he said, now ask, and Ra asked her first question with a voice that did not shake. What do you want? He looked past her out the window into the stars and said, not revenge, not peace, just memory. Let them remember what they did. Let them know one of us is still out here. Let them feel the fear they made us feel. He turned to her then and added one more thing. And maybe, just maybe, let someone know we were more than the war they gave us. Raul stood there and understood this was no ghost. This was the last ember of a fire they tried to kill, and it still burned. The stars outside the old station did not blink. They watched like quiet eyes, cold and wide, as if waiting for something to begin again. Inside, the pilot moved, slowly checking each wire, each console, each signal, like a ritual passed down from pain and purpose. Raul followed him through narrow halls filled with parts of ships, old helmets, broken screens, and hand-drawn maps. Each piece told a story, each wire held memory, and each step echoed the same truth. He never stopped, not after the fall, not after the silence, not even when the Empire said he was gone. He turned to her once and asked a question so simple, it struck like thunder. Do you believe them? She answered without thinking, without fear. No. He nodded and turned back to his work. As if her words unlocked something long buried, he opened a hidden panel and showed her a screen covered in lines. Dots and paths, each one a ship that vanished, each one an outpost that went silent. He pointed to one marked in red and whispered next. Raul leaned in and saw what it was, an Empire relay full of weapon sensors and command systems. He was going after it alone. She stepped back, eyes wide, breath caught between warning and awe. Why now, she asked. Because they listen now, he said. And because I am not hiding anymore. Raul felt the truth in his voice. This was not about war. This was not about death. This was a memory. About fire. He walked to the hangar where his ship waited, an old human fighter patched with steel and scars. She followed him, unsure of her own reasons, unsure of where this would end. He turned and looked at her. Once more, you came here with questions. Now you have to choose, stay and forget, or help and remember. Raul looked down at her hands, at the device that still blinked with Empire codes. Then she made her choice. She stepped beside him and said two words. I remember. He nodded once, no joy, no smile, only understanding. They prepared in silence, her hands helping his, her eyes watching every move. The ship came, alive with low hums and red lights flickering like old blood. When the engines roared, they sounded like ghosts screaming across the stars. They launched into the dark, two souls in one old fighter. The stars moved around them like slow rivers of cold fire. The target was close. The relay floated above a dead planet full of weapons and guards and eyes. They would see him. He wanted them to. He sent out a signal. not to hide, not to trick. A name, his name, the last pilot of Earth, the signal hit. The Empire, like a storm alarms, lit up orders, shouted hunters, moved again. He was not running, he was coming. The relay armed itself, shields raised, guns pointed, but he was faster. He moved like wind through trees, like shadow through flame, his fighter weaved between fire and steel, leaving trails of smoke and sparks. Raoul sat behind him, watching the stars burn around them, her breath gone, her heart wild. He fired once, then twice, hitting not ships, not people. He hit the memory cores, the transmitters. The lies, the relay blinked dark, the message spread. A human fighter had struck the Empire again, the last one still alive, still flying. Hunters came in waves, sleek and silver sharp as knives, but he did not run. He danced old turns, old tricks, learned. In dead skies taught by ghosts, now gone 100 fell, then 2, then silence. He left them alive to remember to tell. The fighter pulled away engines, screaming a name into the void. They returned to the station, burned and shaking, but alive. Raoul looked at him, not with fear, not with doubt, with purpose. He sat down, slow bones, aching hands, shaking eyes, still full of stars. She sat beside him and opened a map. There are more places, she said, more lies. He nodded again and marked the next one. The ember burned brighter now, not just in him, in her too. And maybe one day in others, the ghost was no longer a whisper. He was a fire, and the fire was spreading asterisk. The Empire had never feared one man. They had crushed fleets, burned worlds, silenced rebellions with just a command from above, but this was different. This was not war. This was memory, and memory could not be erased with fire. The last pilot had struck again, and this time he had not come alone. They saw the second signal, a small ship unknown to them, quiet and fast. They thought it was a traitor. They thought she could be broken. They thought wrong. Her name reached the Emperor's. Is Raoul, a young officer, once loyal, now silent, now missing the Emperor, ordered her capture. Alive or dead, he did not care. He believed fear could control the stars. He did not understand that fire spreads faster when it is hunted. On a moon made of ice, a base powered by Empire tech blinked red, alarms rang. The last pilot had sent a message. Again, a warning, do not erase the past. He had carved it into the walls of their data hub, burned it into every feed. People watched, people listened. Some whispered, some remembered. When the fire grew, Raoul sat beside him, watching the signals dance across the screen, each one a call, each one a question. Some asked if Earth was real. Some asked if the ghost could help them. Some asked if they were next. She saved them. All the pilot did not speak much, but his eyes never stopped moving. He showed her how to fly in silence, how to track a signal without being seen, how to read a lie by the shape of the code. She learned fast. She did not want revenge. She wanted truth. The station shook one night. A blast rocked the outer wall. The Empire had found them. A small strike team entered fast in hard weapons, ready faces cold. But the pilot was ready. He moved like wind in a storm, quiet and sharp. They never stood a chance. Raoul took cover, eyes wide, heart loud, but hands steady when it was over the floor. Was full of smoke. The pilot stood in the doorway, light behind him, like fire. He was not smiling. He never smiled. He simply said, "They will send more." Raoul nodded. They always do. She knew what would happen next. The Empire would paint them as monsters. Send out more lies, build more fear. So she sent her own message, not in secret, not in shadows, but wide and clear. She told the truth. About Earth, about the fall, about the man who still flew. She sent it to old allies, forgotten rebels, scattered traitors. Even the neutral cores, and one by one they listened, one by one they began to speak. The ghost had a name now. The last pilot of Earth, and he was not alone. The Emperor watched the words spread like sparks across dry leaves. He slammed his fists against the glass of the command deck and shouted orders. Find them, burn them, end them. But the stars were too wide, the voices too many, and the fear had changed sides. The hunter who once walked without sound now feared the dark. The stations that once welcomed Empire ships now turned them away. The name of the pilot became a whisper in the halls of power, a shadow in every system, a question in every order. What if he is watching on a small world, once forgotten a pilot, and Raoul met with others, old friends? Of Earth smugglers, scouts, engineers, one brought a piece of tech lost since the war, another brought maps of Empire weak points. They did not bow, they did not ask, they simply said, "We remember the pilot," looked at Raoul. She had started this, not with weapons, but With word now the fire had caught, now the stars were listening, they began building. Old ships, old codes, new hope. The pilot walked among them, silent but steady. He was not a hero to them, he was a reminder that silence can scream, that one voice can shake an empire. Back in the Empire, the Emperor received one last message, simple, clear. No threats, only a name Earth remembers. He threw the screen to the floor, but the words burned into his mind. He knew now this was not about battle. This was about story, and the story was not his anymore. The fire he tried to kill was now too big, too bright, and it had a face. The last pilot, the ember he missed, the mistake he made. The sky over the Empire's heart was always bright, filled with patrol ships, banners, and signals made to show power and control, but now something had changed. The air felt different. The guards stood tighter. The officers spoke softer. The name they had tried to erase now echoed through back channels and quiet halls. The last pilot, the ghost of Earth, still flying, still fighting, and never alone again. On a quiet world, far from the Empire's core, a meeting took place without flags, without ranks. Without fear, the pilot stood at the center, not dressed for war, not armed for battle. He wore the same flight suit, the same eyes full of fire. Around him stood rebels, traitors, lost soldiers, and those who had once looked away. Now they looked at him. And they listened. He did not speak long. He did not speak loud. He simply told them what they already knew. The Empire had lied. The Empire had erased, but the truth was still here in every lost outpost, in every scorched signal, in every name they tried to forget. The stars were wide, but stories flew faster, and now the story was his, the one they could not break, the one they could not stop. A plan took shape. Not to destroy, not to burn, but to reveal, to show the galaxy what the Empire had done. To remind the people what they had lost. A fleet would not win this, but memory would. They found old beacons once used by Earth before the fall. They fixed them, cleaned them, rewired them. They placed them across systems deep in shadows between planets. Near trade lines, when activated, they would broadcast one thing: truth, images, voices. The last days of Earth. Not just war, but hope, songs, laughs, names. Children running under blue skies, the kind of memory no empire could twist. And when the signal began, it would spread to every edge of the galaxy. No one could stop it, no one could silence it. The pilot would fly the first beacon, Rao would fly the second, others took the rest. They moved in silence. Each one knowing the risk, each one ready. The day came like all others, quiet still. Then the sky broke, not with fire, but with sound, the sound of old Earth music, the sound of laughter. The sound of a world that had lived before it died. Screens blinked across stations. Pilots looked up miners. Paused merchants cried because they remembered or they saw for the first time what was taken. The Empire moved fast. They shut feeds, they scrambled signals, they blamed rebels, but it was too late. The sky was speaking, and the name it spoke was his. The last pilot hunters were sent to crush the stations, to silence the beacons. One was caught. The pilot, he let them take him. He let them see him. He let them believe they had won. They brought him in chains before the Emperor. The room was gold and sharp, the floor clean, the walls high. The Emperor sat tall, proud, furious. He asked nothing. He gave one command: end him. The guards raised their weapons. The pilot did not move. He did not plead. He looked at the sky above the glass roof and he smiled. The signal began again from above, from inside, from the very heart of the Empire. Raoul had flown higher. She had hacked the Emperor's tower. She had played the signal on every device across the capital. They watched, they listened, they saw the pilots. Eyes they heard Earth sing, the guards lowered their weapons, the Emperor screamed, the people outside rose. Not with guns, with candles, with names, with tears. Because now they remembered too, the chains fell, the pilot stood, and the fire reached the throne, not to burn, but to end the silence. The Emperor fled, the walls shook, the people marched. The sky over the capital turned red, gold, blue, the colors of old Earth. The pilot walked out free, not as a soldier, but as a story, a memory, a truth that could never again be buried. The stations that had once feared now played his voice. The planets that once looked away now looked up. And the stars that had watched so long now burned brighter because they too carried the name of the last pilot. The ember that never died, the man who made the galaxy, remember.